warm welcome to everyone, and it is now my pleasure to leave the floor to Alex from KAUST University, and please write all of your questions into the Q&A section and we will be answering at the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Federica. Welcome everyone. It's great to see a turnout. I hope you've either had a good day or you're having a good morning wherever you are. This presentation is on KAUST, so we're going to introduce us a bit, but specifically we are going to talk about the Biological and Environmental Sciences and Engineering Division. So you're in the right place if that's what you're looking for, and it's really great to have you. Just another quick introduction. So I'd like to thank Professor Stefan Arold, who's with us today. He's a professor in bioscience and, as Federica mentioned, the Associate Dean of the BESI division. We also have Burgundy Powell, who's a GPC, Graduate Program Coordinator, I believe, and also one of our recruitment specialists, so handling a double role there from the BESI division. And she's the one that, if you inquire in general to the BESI division, she'll be the one that is communicating with you. My name's Alex and I'm from the International Programs Office. You may have seen me before. We've done quite a few of these, but again, it's great to see the turnout today. I think, Federica, we might, now that we've introduced ourselves, ask where our audience is coming from. So we do have a few polls that Federica mentioned. Why don't we launch one now and find out where our audience is from?
Yeah, so actually the first one we have answer at is like how much do you know about the university, but I'm just going to add the other one about the regions, and we'll be launching soon. So we can start with the first one.
Okay, let's do that. Thanks, Federica. So we'd like to know how much you know about KAUST. Is it the first time you've heard about us? What is KAUST? You know a bit about us, or do you know us quite well?
Good, so let me share the results.
Okay. So this is great because we are going to do a general overview on KAUST, so a lot of you will get to know more about us, and it's good to see that some people have heard of us and that there are others that have heard of us before and are going to learn a bit more today as well. So KAUST was established in 2009. Our full name is King Abdullah University of Science and Technology, and we are a graduate level research university focusing on STEM, located on the beautiful shores of the Red Sea, about an hour north of Jeddah. We focus our research and our science on 4 areas of global significance, which is food, water, energy, and the environment. And KAUST itself is quite unique. We're an enclosed campus, we're an enclosed community, you could say. The map you see on the right side of your screen is the whole campus and everything that is within it. So we have a community area. The bright yellow there's our student housing that's right along the Red Sea. We have a commercial center, which includes a supermarket and Discovery Square, which has eateries and also a supermarket. You can see a golf course there, the Palms housing. We have a research park and innovation center. We have our own marina and of course our academic campus. Everything you see here, it's hard to describe, but I do have a video that I'd like to show you. And within that, everything you see in the video is on the campus. So we're going to play this next. Sometimes it's a bit easier to show you rather than tell you about it. Okay, so that gives you a kind of a visual overview. If you'd like to check out our KAUST YouTube channel, we have one, a lot of great videos on there. Okay, so a few quick facts about KAUST. We have over 1,300 students now. We are a research university, so 77% of our students are PhD. 67% of our student body is international. In terms of nationalities itself, we have 118 different nationalities that live in the community. And our student to faculty ratio is 7:1, so something we're quite proud of. The campus size itself is 39 square kilometers. And the picture you see in front of you in the background is of our beautiful campus and the library building. So there's some quick facts for you. Obviously, if you have any questions about the campus itself, please feel free to put them in the Q&A. This is just a quick breakdown to show you how international we are and the diversity that is among our student body. We're proud to have quite a high percentage within the STEM field of women studying with us at 36%. And you can see the breakdown of our nationalities truly is international. About 33% are local, but outside of that, it is international. So quite a big number there. Federica, I've just seen you come on. Is there another poll that we have?
No, actually, so I wanted to know that we have a poll about where the students are coming from, if you want to launch it now. And
yeah,
then,
okay.
Yeah,
so we do have a poll. We'd like to know where you come from. You can see where we're coming from. So how about we launch that now? Thank you. And welcome to the new attendees that have come since we started as well.
Great.
Okay, quite a lot from Latin America and some from Europe. So hello to everyone there. Hello to the 2% or the one person that is saying hi from the Middle East as well. And I'm sure there are others that haven't filled it out, but thank you again for joining. Okay, our global research impact, despite being just over 10 years old, it's quite significant. You would have heard or you would have seen in the video that we're ranked #1 in the world for citations per faculty in QS for the past 5 years. In the A3 research rankings, we're ranked #1 in the top 20 universities under 20 years old. And we do have 14 highly cited researchers, which is 9% of our faculty. On the right, you'll see a world map, and this is with listing the institutions that collaborate with us around the world. As you can see, it's quite significant. Oceania there is included in Asia Pacific. We are doing a lot in Australia as well. That's not being left out. So this is a question that we often get, and this is one where students ask questions after as well. So please have a good look at this screen. At KAUST, we are a merit-based graduate research university. Our language of instruction is English, and we provide master's, PhD, and a master to PhD pathway degree as well. Every student that comes to KAUST and is admitted receives the KAUST fellowship. Okay, the KAUST fellowship we feel is one of the most competitive of its kind, and it includes full tuition. So you don't pay any tuition fees for your whole program. You receive an annual living allowance of $20,000 to $30,000, and that's annually. All your accommodation is taken care of as well, and that includes your utilities such as electricity and water. It also includes your medical and dental coverage, so your insurance, and your relocation support, so your flights out here. And in addition to that, you also receive assistance with your visa and also return flights home every year. There's no separate application for this fellowship. So when you put an application into KAUST, if you're admitted, every student will receive the KAUST fellowship. It is competitive, and we will go through the admissions requirements later in the presentation for you to find out. But that is the KAUST Fellowship. And from here, I'll going to pass it to Professor Arnold to talk about the BESI division.
Thank you, Alex. Oops, all right. Let me just share my screen. I think you have to stop sharing yours first.
And sorry, if you'd like, also while you're presenting, we also have a couple of questions. One is about what program level the audience is looking for, and also which program they are interested in. So just let me know if you want to know, maybe before starting the presentation or after. So whenever you'd like, we're ready for those questions.
So what is the question, for me or for the students?
Yeah, it's actually for the students. So we wanted to know about those two. Yes.
I was wrestling with my computer.
Sure.
The thing up here, so I wasn't listening. All right, here we are already. Okay, so welcome around the world, and good evening to those who live not so far away from us. Good afternoon to those in Europe, and good morning to those in the Americas. I will give you a very brief overview of our division. It's called the Biological and Environmental Science and Engineering Division, or BESI, and I'm currently the Associate Dean of this division. Now, as you have maybe seen very briefly, KAUST has 3 divisions, and we are one of them. Then there's also the SEMSI division, which has an even longer name, the Computer, Electrical, and Mathematical Science and Engineering Division. And then we have the Physical Science and Engineering divisions. Now, these are not silos. Many faculty live in different divisions. Students can, they need to register for one division, but then can take courses of the others. So really, one of the things which I'm always impressed by and motivated by is that KAUST promotes multidisciplinary research. And so again, students can ask to have electives from other divisions and really tailor the lectures to their interests and specific requirements. So as the students, so is also the faculty, we are from all over the place. You can see here the BESI faculty, and just a quick overview. You can see that we are from very different regions, also from very different universities and institutes prior to coming to KAUST, many of them top level, including Harvard, EPFL, and others. Our research in KAUST, in our division, can be sort of grouped into different foci. One is sort of the expected cellular and molecular biology research. Another type of research is about microbiology. And then we have, going into the more smaller things, biophysics and bioimaging. And of course, these research foci are not, again, isolated. Plants, just like humans, live with and around microbes. And of course, you can study microbes using biophysics, or plants using bioimaging. And then we have marine science. So there's the big themes. Marine science, of course, it's a very it's a very obvious decision to have marine science program here, because KAUST has probably the biggest, or Saudi Arabia has the biggest access to the Red Sea, which is an intriguing habitat. It's extremely hot and salty, so even in winter you can still swim in the swimming trunks. You can experience that even in winter the water temperature does not go below about 27 degrees. And summer it's getting actually a little bit too hot. And then we have, of course, plant science. Again, the situation is that we are in a country where plants struggle to survive, and we are interested to see how they do so. And again, we have a fairly obvious research theme, which is water science and technology. Water is a big issue in Saudi Arabia. How do we get it in fresh water? How do we get it? And how can we use it best? And of course, with these 3, Saudi Arabia and the Red Sea actually places itself in a position where we have somehow a vision of the future, unfortunately, because we're living in a globally warming world. So if we identify how creatures can survive in this environment, then maybe we can have some better ideas what happens to the rest of the world and how we can help mitigating the results of climate change. I will just give you in the following a few sort of highlights, rough overviews of what is happening in our division. I hope I can excite you about it a little bit. So one of the many themes is how the environment influences us being all organisms on Earth. How is the environment, which is rapidly changing, affecting the way that the genetic material encoded in the genes produces our phenotype? And there are many unexpected and maybe in the meantime expected ways in which the environment can affect us or any organism. And there's quite a big group of people interested in that. And these can work in humans, for example, Valerio and Maureen or Antonio. But they can also work in plants, as we have here, for example, Heribert, or marine environments, as Manuel does. Then, of course, we have the cellular and molecular biology, but there are many ways in which you can do this. For example, Antonio uses his expertise to produce induced pluripotent stem cells and does so to study specific diseases by deriving them from patients, and then he can study the patient's sort of specificities and features within the cell culture without having to go and ask the patients for more samples each time. We have colleagues, for example, Magdi, who is using CRISPR-Cas9, is of course one of the sort of very often highlighted new methods, new technologies. So he uses this to engineer organisms, and his particular take on this is to engineer plants, which are, I have to admit, plants are something which I haven't looked in much before I came to KAUST, because I was working in the MD Anderson Cancer Center in the US. But coming here, it's fascinating to explore and to see how complex plants are. And if you think about it, it's quite obvious because plants can't run away, so they have to have everything in place. And that makes them very complicated creatures. And Magdi is using CRISPR-Cas to see if he can engineer and help somehow these creatures to survive. We have people like, for example, Jasmine, who looks how to best direct stem cells to specific sites. We have Charlotte Hauser, who's looking into using microbiology for regenerative medicine, but not only for humans. She's also having a way of 3D printing corals to see if you can seed new coral reefs in places where we think that's necessary and positive. And then we have colleagues, for example, Shahika, who is at the interface between biology and material science, and she produces this fantastic sensors and elements that can interact with or be used for interaction with organisms, including humans, to measure, for example, specific biomarkers. And another group of people are looking into the many ways in which microbes interact with us, with the environment, and in ways in which these microbes can then be used, for example, for biotechnological approaches. So we have Anap, our specialist in pathogens. He was, of course, extremely busy in the last 1.5 years looking into the COVID, but normally his main focus is on malaria and tuberculosis. We have Daniele, who's looking into how the interactions are between microbes in extreme systems. And we do have a lot of extreme systems, not just the ones which are obvious, like the desert and the very salty and very hot normal sort of waters of the Red Sea. But we also have in the Red Sea, at the bottom of the Red Sea, we have these brine pools, which are extremely intriguing environments. These are really salty underwater lakes, which can be very hot and full of heavy metals. So it's a very hostile environment, but nonetheless, microbes survive in there. And of course, it's interesting to see how they manage. And if we understand that, then maybe we can extract specific microbes or specific enzymes from these microbes, which we then hope would be very, very stable in industrial applications. We have, I just highlighted a few of them, I will not go through all of them, but we have, for example, Heribert, who has found that specific microbes that live in the desert sand next to plants help those plants to survive. And he sort of extracted this and now provides and commercializes a cocktail of microbes that will help plants, if you make them grow around the plant roots, help the plants to survive in extremely harsh environments, such as happening here, but will happen or will occur more frequently elsewhere. And then we have those interested in seeing, because seeing is believing and understanding. We have people looking into matter using physical methods, and this allows us, as you will see a little bit later, more and more detail, to look into the organisms at various resolution scales, from the cellular level down to the atoms, using methods, for example, like electron microscopy, X-ray crystallography, or nuclear magnetic resonance. And then, so these are the research foci of the people, but also, of course, it makes a lot of sense that those who have similar interests but yet complementary expertise, that they come together, and this happens in so-called centers. So we have several centers where people group to typically focus on more applied research. So we have, of course, the Center for Desert Agriculture, where our researchers try to understand, but also try to understand how plants survive, and then use that knowledge to make plants, agriculturally important plants, more resistant to the environment, but also to pathogens. And then we have, of course, the Red Sea Research Center, where people study all from the very big, like this iconic whale sharks, to the very small, meaning microbes. And this is, of course, these are fantastic species. Typically, they migrate through the Red Sea, sort of somewhere down here, and then coming up in early spring. And there's sort of KAUST boats going out and looking after them, and you can actually go there and swim, snorkel with the whale sharks. You need to find them, but it's actually, people are quite good in doing this. The ones who come through here are actually still fairly young and small. They're only up to 7 meters long, but it's quite impressive already. Now, of course, the marine science, the Red Sea Research Center, more generally uses the Red Sea as a laboratory of the future to see how plants, how species in there survived, and to use this as a model for climate change, but also how can we sustain this beautiful, beautiful fauna and flora in the Red Sea in terms of coastal marine resource management. And it's really wonderful if you drive out. There's really beautiful and fairly pristine coral reefs just around the corner here. I've talked about importance of water science. So we have a water desalination research center who, of course, look into how best extract sweet water from salt water, and how to best use it without losing too much and without investing too much energy. It's a very important part. We also have a center which is not just in our division, but overarching arching over to the SEMC division, the computer science division. And that's the Computational Bioscience Research Center, which of course computer science, computational analysis becomes more and more important, especially in terms of AI and deep learning. So the idea here is to bring people together who either produce data and want it to be analyzed, or who develop the latest methods in analysis, computational analysis of complex data, as we have in bioscience, and to extract information from there. We also have very recently founded the Scoused Smart Health Initiative. So Alex said in his presentation that we have the pillars: food, water, environment, and energy, but also health is part of it, and sort of it comes in with environment, I guess. And so we have a new initiative which really likes to link to Saudi hospitals, clinics, and bring the latest ideas in terms of biotech and in terms of computational analysis of data to the clinic, and also bring clinicians in contact with KAUST, and also bring in the near future MD students from the clinics over to KAUST. During the last summer, 2020, when everything was locked down, KAUST, like many other places, thought, hold on a minute, we have all these beautiful research facilities here, the bright minds on campus. Maybe we can do something to help combat the pandemic. So there was a decision to very rapidly put in place the Rapid Research Response Team to find ways of combat, as I said, COVID-19. And I will also present my personal contribution to that. All right, so we have the research, and now in terms for the students, we have different programs. We have the Bioscience Program, Marine Science Program, Plant Science and Environmental Science and Engineering programs, and Bioengineering program. These programs are still very well connected with each other. For example, students from bioscience can, of course, apply what they do for marine science or for plant science. Bioengineering is a particular program where students with a background in all sorts of engineering, electric engineering, computer scientists can join and then apply their knowledge and their way of solving problems to our problems. And life science has a lot of very intricate and complex problems to solve. So this is a nice program to attract students from the outside of bioscience to work with us on our extremely interesting projects. So here we have for each program as a program chair, and more importantly, we also have various program coordinators. And I just see that actually one has just joined, Selina, who is not in here yet. But Burgundy is also with us today, and she and Amin are probably for students the most important people in the division, because they're just the go-to persons for everything. They know when to deposit the thesis manuscript, whom to ask for finding a internship, and what is the next, what is the way in which this particular grade is applied. So they are really good. And also, everybody asked them, I asked them to. So they really are the knowledge that people seek, students and faculty alike. Just to conclude on this one here, I thought I'd just present this very short reflection on what we think that students should look like. Actually, this should mean BESI students, not just bioscience and bioengineering. Now, I think as students, you really should be curious and passionate about what you're analyzing, looking into. And if you so, then you're necessarily self-motivated and self-organized and become independent. And that's, I think, sort of this mix of being curious and self-motivated is very adapted to KAUST, where we have so many things that are possible, mainly because we have the great facilities, great people, and also really a good sort of funding structure that allows us to try something new. If there's a good incentive, we just go on and see if it works. Sort of think out of the box. In terms of classes, they are more based on a concept-based ideology rather than just memorizing things. So that's maybe known to many students. For them, it's new. They will get used to it. It's very good, I think. As a student, you shouldn't be afraid of new areas. Of course, science is generally, science generally is changing very fast, and even someone who works in the same field will change the ways he or she works continuously. Science is evolving, so should the people. It's good we like to have students from very diverse backgrounds. As I said, the bioengineering programs takes engineering students, but we also welcome others, for example, those who have worked in industry for a while, or those who work in hospitals. If you just explain why you think that after some little bit unusual occupation you want to come to KAUST, we are open to listen, and we like people who are a little bit different and bring new ideas. And KAUST is, as Alex said already, taught in English, so that should be also something where you're fairly happy with. and familiar with. I'm not sure if you should take questions now or later. I think later is probably that one's what was. Yes.
If you like, we can keep them all at the end also, because I've noticed that we receive some questions that you actually answer while you are presenting. So if that's okay, we can leave them for the end.
All right. Okay, with this, then I will just sort of stop with this one and go to a very short sort of flavor of what we are doing in my group, what people are doing while I'm writing emails. All right, that's it. Fortunately, it comes to that very often. So my group is called Stryga, Structural Biology and Engineering. Actually, initially I wanted to call my group like my first hamster, whose name was Stups. I didn't quite mention, but it is still there. And we are engaged in linking form and function. I'm trying I'm trying to make interesting what we're doing. We're trying to link form and function on the molecular level. So for this, my group, we have three sort of pillars. One of which is it's called structural biology. It's the field where we use high-end, extremely sophisticated physical instruments, X-ray crystallography, electron microscopy, nuclear magnetic resonance, to determine the three-dimensional structure of molecules, typically proteins and their binding partners. So these proteins are, I think most of you have heard about proteins, not sure in what context, that's not real. Of course, there's also these things which people use to get more muscles, but it's actually the workhorses of our body and of any organism's body. They are really there to fulfill all the functions. And for this, they adopt many of them to a large extent, these very intricate three-dimensional structures. It's from the amino acid sequence alone, it's still very difficult or impossible to determine how this three-dimensional structure looks like. But knowing how this structure looks like is very important, because the structure determines the function of the protein. So if you have the structure, then we can understand how the protein functions, and then we can go further and see how the protein maybe stops functioning if there's a particular disease or a particular chemical compound that would interact with it. So here, with this structural biology, we create the basic knowledge of the molecules that interest us. Then we're using more and more computational biology, and I will explain this. I will give examples for each of which, but just one later. So using computational biology to extend the knowledge which we gain through the structural biology approaches, and sort of learn things in more general, in the bigger context, to extend the data. And then we also use understanding gained through these two occupations to see if you can just assemble these molecules in ways that they will have a new function, that they will do something that we like to do, or we need to be done, and we can't do at the moment. And I will also give you an example for this. So just for the first pillar, the structural biology, one of the things we've been working on with Professor Al-Babili, and this is Umar from my team, been working on a beautiful little plant. It's called Stryga, or witchweed. It looks very pretty, but the thing is, it's quite dangerous because it attaches underground to crop plants, and when these crop plants grow, then these tiny little seeds of the Stryga plant sense that, and once they feel it and sense it, then they start growing as well. And they don't have roots, they just attach to the host plant and drain all the nutrients. So at the end, the host plant dies and the little one here flowers. But we can't eat this one. And so it's created a huge financial burden and increases the food insecurity dramatically in places where it's active. And there's different species. This one actually here is in sort of hot, dry regions, but we have also others in moderate climates that feed on sunflowers. So together with our colleague Salim, we determined this 3D structure of the protein from the Stryga plant that senses the host plant. And we also, in so doing, actually by chance, we managed to find a molecule that binds to it very specifically. And we now are using this molecule as a starting compound to find ways in which we can inhibit the Stryga plant to grow, or to sense the presence of the crop plant, and hence inhibit the Stryga plant from killing the crop plants. We're also looking into ways to direct a molecule which is quite dangerous. In a way, it's a hexameric structure which binds through these entities here. It binds to other molecules in the cell, and if it binds, then it will take those molecules from where they are and unfold and digest them. So it's like a machine of destruction, which is very useful. It's used in many aspects of life. This one here is from plants, but it's also important, for example, for tumor development and other diseases. So here we used electron microscopy. This is sort of the latest, just fresh from the bench from Brandon here. It's quite a fascinating method where you can, from these fairly blurry images from hundreds of thousands of these things, you can reconstruct these 3D structures. It's quite magical if it works, and it's a really good tool to have. Now going over to the computational biology part. So we've been working a lot with clinicians who found patients, and it's fairly possible and easy to determine what particular genetic defect occurs in these patients. So we're looking at genetic diseases. The clinicians have the patient, try to figure out which part of a particular gene was mutated. And we then take this information and place it into the three-dimensional context of the protein that's encoded by the gene. And then we try to see what happens if a particular mutant, for example, the one that affects these children here, what would happen, or how can we explain the phenotype based on this mutation? And then, of course, how can this understanding help therapy for these people? So we did a lot of work on this with an increasing amount of clinicians in the kingdom, and now we're using computational methods to automate this more and to be able to look at not just hundreds of proteins, but tens of thousands at the same time. All right, as a last example before I conclude and finish, synthetic biology, the third pillar, where we try to build something new from things we discover and we observe. So we have been teaming up with Shahika, she's in the middle here, a colleague, I mentioned her briefly in the other presentation. So she's an expert in material science and in applications of material science, sensors in particular, for health. For detecting molecules related to health. And we've teamed up with her just before COVID to use her organic electrochemical transistor, or OECT, to combine this transistor technology together with our understanding of biological molecules to build a new sort of a next generation transistor. So transistor is something that where we have a gate electrode and then a source and a drain, and this little device is able to amplify signals. So it's an amplification, and so we have sort of used this methodology and to a particular flavor of transistor, which is an organic electrochemical transistor. We have used it to combine this with so-called nanobodies. So these are the business end, the small parts that bind to targets from single chain antibodies, which are found in some species, for example, llamas and camels, but also sharks. So these are specific entities which can be trained to detect a particular protein or molecule, and we managed to put them onto the transistor gate electrode here in a way that they are extremely densely bound on this gate electrode. And when we now take a nanobody that is raised to detect, to recognize and bind to the spike protein of the COVID virus, which we did here, then we can come up with a new detector for SARS, which has extremely high sensitivity. So we can detect single molecules, single virus molecules in just 5 microliters. And it's also very fast. So it's in a way, it's sort of has the good sides of both. It's as sensitive as RT-PCR, but as fast as lateral flow immunoassays. And the good thing is we don't need any sample processing. You can also use saliva. So you don't need to have someone poking your nose or your mouth, which is not particularly pleasant, as we know now. So it has a lot of very good things, very good features. We have tested it with patients, and it works beautifully. So now we are in the next steps and trying to define a commercial prototype that we can then use to interact with hospitals and see if they can use it. And maybe, hopefully, we think that this device as a next generation detector is able to replace or supplant or complement diagnostic devices in many fields, because we can, by just exchanging the nanobody to take one with a different target, we can then detect other viruses or other biomarkers. All right, so this is a little bit of an overview of what I'm doing in my group. So we have these 3 pillars, and together we can, as I believe, have a sort of reach, combine the understanding of matter, and then automate understanding, and then use it for technology, which is important for us and the region and the world. All right, with this, I will finish here, and I think I'm very much in time. This is, of course, one of those COVID Zoom group meetings where you can see most, but not all, of my team. All right, thank you for your thanks for listening, and I will give you back to all of you.
Thank you so much. I'd like to thank the Associate Dean and Alexander for the presentation. And actually, during the presentation, you answered a lot of the questions that we received, but we keep receiving some questions, which I'm now going through with you.
Federica,
yes, Alex.
I'm just going to finish because there definitely are a lot of questions. And thank you again, Professor, for the peek into your lab and all the work you're doing there. I do have a little bit more to go on the final one, because the questions that the students are asking around admissions will be covered there. So let's run through that.
Perfect.
And go from for the others. Yeah. So give me 1 second. You can see there's a lot of questions about the fellowship still. So people may have joined later. I just wanted to tell everyone there is no separate application for the scholarship, or the KAUST fellowship as we call it. It covers tuition. You get a generous annual living allowance, your accommodation. Everything is included in that, including medical, dental, and your travel costs. And there's no separate application, okay? Because there were a few questions about that. What I do want to talk about is very quickly the admissions requirements. Now, Professor has told us the type of student that comes and the characteristics of them, which was really insightful actually, and I think valuable to the students. But we do have some set admissions requirements as well, which are listed on the screen. You need to have a bachelor's or a master's degree in a relevant field of study. We do require a statement of purpose and CV. We do need to obtain all your university transcripts from every institution that you attended at all levels. We look for an average cumulative GPA of 3.5 out of 4, but understanding that a lot of areas, a lot of countries, a lot of institutions aren't running out of that scale as well. So don't worry about converting that yourself. Please don't actually. Just send it through as part of your application, and our admissions team will work on that. You do need to have an English language proficiency. As Professor said, everything is taught in English, and the language on campus is predominantly English as well. So the TOEFL and IELTS scores are both listed on the screen. For recommendations, now, a few questions about this as well. they shouldn't be from family. They should be somebody that can testify to your academics or your research. And in terms of actually obtaining these, we don't ask you to get them to send them to us. We just ask for their name and contact details, and we take care of that from the admissions team. Some have said, if my GPA isn't extremely high or a bit lower, how can I help with entry? Well, the GRE is one way, okay? So you can, it's not compulsory, but if you submit a strong GRE as well, we'd definitely recommend that. And of course, research experience for a PhD. So that's the entry requirements. We have a few other slides, but I think given our time is running low, it might be best to utilize it with Professor President Burgundy to ask and answer the questions of the students.
Perfect, thank you, Alex. And I actually want to thank Burgundy because I've noticed that she's been answering some of the questions via chat. So we have a question from one of the students asking, I'm interested in a PhD related to sports genetics and aging, development of methodologies to improve life in humans older than 60 years. So asking if this is something that could be done within the basic division.
I guess I will reply to that.
Thanks.
Yes, well, aging is one of the things one of the mechanisms of aging are one of them, which I certainly studied in our division. Especially we have people interested in epigenetics, and there's epigenetic variations or changes to our system which are correlating with aging. Now, in terms of sort of PhD proposals, often more generally outside of the aging, it's certainly good if students have a very clear project in mind. But then, of course, they need to see that they also need to find a supervisor who will work on that. And if there's a clear, straight match, and this person is now in the field for doing exactly what I want, that's very good. If that's not the case, then maybe it's good to, before you apply, talk to the possible PIs and see if they would be interested and if they had the facilities and the people to go into this field. And if the answer is no, then probably, and you really insist on doing exactly that, then you probably need to apply somewhere else. But also maybe by talking to these people, you find out that they do something which is not exactly what you thought, but very interesting as well. And then you can get engaged with them. So if you apply as a PhD student, it's very important that you see who among our faculty would be a good sort of supervisor for your studies, and that you reach out to this person to make sure that you explain why you think that he or she would be a good fit, and what your what your ambitions and expertise is.
Perfect, thank you so much. We've been talking about different programs within the division. There is a question about what programs will cover the areas of agronomic engineering and soil study. So if someone is interested in this, what could be the program you would suggest? Okay, so the bioengineering is a program where engineers come in who want to apply their knowledge onto biological systems. And then well, actually, in terms of soil, we have several things going on. We have the plant science program who are looking into that, and there's certainly experts in that, and they want to go more into this direction. Then also people from our environmental science and engineering program, they're looking into soil and the interaction with crops and soil and water. For example, Professor Matthew McCabe, who also is just putting in place a new initiative, which is titled Climate Change and Livability, which again is overarching different divisions, and the idea being really to understand how climate change affects the environment, and probably all of us, and how we can nonetheless thrive happily within the new norm. So yes, so as a short answer, environmental science and plant science.
Thanks, Stefan. Federica, given that Professor Auld has gone through the programs in quite a bit of detail and what BESI offers, perhaps we could launch the poll that asks, what are students interested in studying?
Absolutely, yes. So we've been putting the main program within the basic division. So we've been introducing all the programs that are available. Let us know which of the program you are interested in. Of course, we've been through them all. And in case you have, of course, any further questions, the team will be available to answer them. Perfect. So let me share the results with you. So we can see over 30% environmental science and engineering, and then we have marine science, bioscience, plant science, and finally bioengineering.
Fantastic. A pretty even spread there. So guys, the other thing I wanted to mention as well, conscious of time, is that we have admissions and applications that are done online, but as of today, we've just closed it for the most recent intake, but we will be opening it again shortly. Within this time frame, though, we are encouraging students, just as Professor has said, to reach out. If you're interested in doing research and you want to find out more about KAUST, there's plenty of information on our website, the BESI website, but also please make sure that you contact a professor or someone that is in your area of interest and speak to them. As you can see, Professor's just given us an example of the environmental friendliness of KAUST as well. I think the sensors turn off when we don't move too much.
They want me out, they want me back home.
We'll get you home soon. Maybe let's answer 3 more, Federica. And what I'll do while you're doing that, I'm going to share my screen just because we do have the websites on the screen. One thing we didn't get time to talk about was the internships, which you can find out on the VSRP website. We have over 200 available. But if you're interested in contacting the BESI division directly in Burgundy, we've got the email address here. So you should be more than happy to follow up and put you in contact with the right people. So Federica.
Perfect, yes. So we have actually a question about if someone already holds a master's degree in biological science. So in this case, would you suggest to apply for a master's degree in marine biology or suggesting to apply for PhD? So maybe just what could be the difference that students will do within a master or PhD program?
I'm happy to. I mean, from an admissions point of view, if you already have a master's degree and you've done some research within that, we do like to see students going on to PhDs. We tend to leave space for so on average we have maybe 8,000 applications per a year, and then a very small percentage of them can come in, maybe a few hundred per year as well. So if you already have a master's, we prefer to see students that are going on to high-level studies and bachelor students going to masters. But maybe Professor Stefan, you can talk specifically about the links there. You mentioned a little bit before about the alignment, but what about the question of from biological sciences into marine biology?
For example, you need to put yourself into the position of the people who look at your admission application, and you need to convince those. So if you say I've did a master and I wasn't very good in it, so now I try to do something else, that probably won't fly. But for example, if you say 5 years ago I finished my master's, or say 3 years ago, it doesn't matter, I finished my master's in marine science. And ever since I have become more and more interested in applying deep learning and machine learning, deep learning to study the way in which fish larvae spread around corals. So I think right now I really would like to apply that, but I'm not at the level yet. So I wish to do a degree which allows me, another master's degree which allows me to acquire the knowledge I need in computer science to fulfill my dream of applying computer science to spawning of fish around reefs. So you need to argue, why is a second master for you important? And often this is maybe better, as Alex said, just go for the PhD, because in the PhD you still have classes which you can take fairly freely, so that you can also catch up with information that you haven't had so far.
Perfect.
So Federica, maybe we can just close with the, was the
yes,
useful? And I want to thank Burgundy and Stefan for your time. Sorry to keep you in the office, Stefan. We're almost done.
No problem. It's only 5 minutes to home, so it's all good.
Perfect. So we really wanted to know if this webinar was useful, and as you can see, we are now sharing with you all the contact details. So in case you have any further questions, please feel free to get in contact with the team. We will be also sending you a follow-up email after this event, so you can get in contact. So actually, I have to say that it's a pleasure to see that the majority thought that the webinar was useful, and it's been a real pleasure to have you presenting this session, and it's great to see that all of you were connected and stay connected until the end. So it was really great. I really like to thank one more time our speakers for tonight, and all of you for staying connected and for all of your very much valuable questions. So thank you, and we look forward to seeing you to the next live webinar, KAUST then.
Thanks, everyone. And I've just realized, pretty silly of me, I actually haven't put the Bessie website in the slide on screen. So I'm just going to put that into the chat for everybody. And again, thank you, Burgundy and Professor Stefan, for your time this evening.
Thanks, everybody.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.